Hello everybody, this is Conquering History Games and welcome back to another guide in the world of Kaiserreich version Alpha 0.7.1. Today we are going to be looking at not one of the newer countries, but in fact a very old country, one that has been around for quite a long time in the Kaiserreich world, but I have been asked many times to make a guide of, and that is going to be the nation of Transamur. Transamur, led by everybody's favorite Russian admiral, Admiral Kolchak, is of course thank you always to the Kaiserreich team. Now, this guide was not chosen by patrons. This was in fact chosen by a member of my Discord who won a contest on it, and I said that he can pick any video guide that he wanted me to make within reason, and he went with Transamur, and I thought, wow, I haven't really done a Transamur guide. To at least explain how it works and how it's such a random number generated country, as well as a very difficult country. So that's why you don't really see Let's Plays of it, because unless the person is willing to cheat constantly and frequently, or is just so lucky that they probably should have spent that luck on a lotto ticket instead of a video game, they're not going to do very well. So this is going to be a complex guide in some areas. So the first thing we were going to do is we're going to keep it on January 1st here for a good long time while we actually look at Transamur's situation. And first, let's actually run over who the leader of Transamur is, what Transamur actually is. Transamur is a rogue in the Kaiserreich world government that claims to be the authentic rulers of Russia as a whole, even though they only hold this little corner of it in the east of Asia, that even though it's called Transamur, actually does not include the province of Amur, that is up here. It is led by Admiral Alexander Kolchak, who, as I said, was a Russian admiral. He was loyal to the imperial monarch, the Tsars of Russia, for most of his life, including World War I. Actually, interesting thing about Kolchak, he explored the Arctic, so that's kind of cool. But I don't want to get off track here. He served in the Russo-Japanese War as well as the First World War. And when the Russian Civil War broke out in 1917, he established, Kolchak here, a provisional all-Russian government, for which he had a very long name. I think it was something like the Supreme Leader of all Russian land and sea, which was stationed at Omsk in Siberia. Right here. So right in the middle of Russia. He was the international leader of Russia, but was, and in fact was recognized as such, I should say. He was recognized internationally as the official head of the Russian government for a couple of years until 1920, when he was killed, because the Czechoslovakian Legion, yes, there was a Czechoslovakian Legion running around during the Russian Civil War, handed him over to his enemies, and the Bolsheviks executed him in 1920. However, in this timeline, he has managed to escape to the east and is still claiming to be the legitimate ruler of Russia, even though, again, he only owns this little part of it. So that was a super abbreviated version of who Kolchak is. So when we look at Transamur, you start with 3 research slots. You have some interesting national spirits. You have the Admiral Dictator. He was an admiral, so it's lowering the cost of your naval doctrine research time. There are some anti-Kolchak sentiments in government, which are lowering your stability by 30%. That's why you are at 20% at the moment, at least at the start of the game. You have greater Transamur ambitions, which increase your war support by 15%, bringing it up to a total of 75. While the country's weak, one day you hope it'll be a major power, and of course you want to become the ruler of all of Russia. And there's also Japanese influence in the country, because you start as a puppet of the Empire of Japan, just like Feng Tian is the Japanese puppet, which they are propping up and is laying claim to all of China. You are the Japanese puppet that is laying claim, Japanese-Russian puppet that is laying claim to all of Russia, which can create some interesting dynamics for Japanese games. It's a very interesting corner of the world, this. So you've got your 3 research slots. You do at least start with Infantry Type 1, mercifully, and Marines. You've got Engineer and Recon, only Great War era tanks, only basic artillery, no land doctrines pre-researched. You have some 1936 level equipment as far as destroyers and light cruisers are concerned, but that's really it. You do not even have any carrier technology at the start of the game. As far as your air power is concerned, you get the tactical bomber and fighters, of course, but you also get fighter 1 and naval bomber 1. No electronical engineering pre-researched or any industry stuff either. So you're not the worst nation in the world, technologically speaking, but you're far from the best. You have also got only 7 civilian factories, 3 of which are being used up by consumer goods. And as far as military factories are concerned, you do start with a few things in production. You actually start, now this is kind of important, you might want to watch this. You only start with basic infantry equipment being produced, even though you have infantry equipment 1. Now you may actually want to stay at basic infantry equipment because you're going to find yourself in the hole pretty quickly depending on what you do. That's totally up to you. Yeah, and you may want to distribute some of these things accordingly. Now, something you're going to notice is you got a bunch of red zeros over here. You have basically no resources as Transamur except chromium. And chromium on itself, by itself, is not really great. All the steel is on the other side of the border to your north, which we're going to talk about later, and why it's very important to get that first quick bite early as Transamur. You only have 9 divisions at the start. They're mostly well-trained, and only a few infantry templates here. You have your militias, which are 6 battalions, the regulars, which are 9, and the elite division, which actually comes with holy crap artillery. You have an armored division here that just is mixed with infantry. Remember, that's going to be great war tanks. And of course you have your Cossacks. Now the Cossacks are kind of interesting because when you look at your generals, I'm not going to talk about every single one of these generals, but you have access to, where is he? Here we go. You have access to, as one of your 2 field marshals, Gregory Semyonov. So this is another kind of an interesting character. He was a Cossack, and he was a Cossack and was backed by by the Japanese as another leader of the White Movement. Died in 1946, but also was a part of the Russian Civil War. Very anti-Semitic dude. He would hand out copies of the Protocols of the Elders of Zion, and if you even know what that means, you know what I'm talking about. Although he did allow Jews to fight in his army, allegedly. So anyway, that's just kind of an interesting character that you've got there, and you can do some interesting things with. So you can actually have a cavalry expert, which maybe is not the worst idea, to have some fast-moving cavalry when you're trying to make your way through the wasteland that is Siberia. Moving on, your focus tree. You have got a pretty decently sized focus tree, but a lot of it is locked off for you for pretty large amounts of time. You have a naval tree here, your Eastern Harbor. That's going to give you some experience pretty quickly, just like your militarization one will. You can go for fleet and being, trade interdiction, and then down here is your improving of the Vladivostok port. One of the things I think is kind of interesting is that trade interdiction and fleet and being is not mutually exclusive, so you actually do get access to all these different bonuses. So you've got the cruiser bonuses, destroyer bonuses, submarine bonuses, carrier bonuses, and then doctrine breakthrough is just generic. You can then either go with the Grand Fleet, which is going to give you lowered production costs for capital ships, carriers, and such like that. Or you can go Pearl in the east, which is just going to give you a couple of coastal forts, a naval base, and some infrastructure in Vladivostok. So you have also the beginnings of militarization here, which I just talked about. You get your motorized and armor down here. You do get 2 armor technology research bonuses. It's totally up to you which kind of tanks you want to go for. Down here, you can get 50,000 manpower really quick, which is nice considering that you only have 70 recruitable population when the game starts, and that is with you being on extensive conscription. And you've also got your infantry equipment and support artillery stuff down here. 1 research bonus for land doctrine and a couple for your special forces. Here we have the air branch of the tree where you can work on your air doctrines, getting increased air bases in different areas. Now, here's where we're coming to an example of what I was saying, where some of these are going to be locked off. If you took the Vladivostok air base, You are not going to be able to get the Irkutsk strips because you do not own that. That is a city that is over here. Irkutsk. I think that's how it's pronounced. I have absolutely no idea, though. Same thing here. Develop Novosibirsky airfields. That's another one. Or Novosibirsky. That's another city which is basically right here. I think yeah, it's right here. This is where it's going to be. So you're moving west as you conquer Russia. You're able to build more air bases, but you also have some airborne technology here, fighters, close air technology, close air support. This is actually kind of a cool one because you get a reduced by 100% ahead of time, so that could be good. Air power is good when you're over wastelands. Over here is your industrial part of the tree, but again, it's more Navy stuff again. So you get infrastructure, then naval dockyards, although again, these are blocked off because you do not own this city. The Trans-Siberian Railway is blocked off because you do not own these areas, and so on and so forth. Eventually, you can come down to another research slot here, but that is not until you're in Novo-Nikolaevsky, which is kind of in the middle of Siberia. And then right here, expanding industry in Western Siberia, you're not going to be able to use that until you're pressed pretty much right up against the Urals, almost a little bit before it. Then there is the anti-Kolchak coup. I'm not going to talk about that until the end, but basically, depending on what kind of government that you use, you can go down these 4 branches, which are going to give you different bonuses, and it's going to end with you getting a research slot. We are going to be focusing on Kolchak in charge because, of course, it's Kolchak, although I will talk about the other branches before the end of this. Turmoil in Siberia, we're going to skip over for now. And then you can improve your trade relations with Japan, and you just have different things that bring you closer to Fengtian and give you different sorts of bonuses. Although, take note that whenever you do these things, for example, aid from Japan is going to give you 140 political power if you are a subject of the Empire of Japan. But you also get an additional 2% in the popularity of authoritarian democrats. Now, if you look over here, we are paternal autocrats. The military government, led by Kolchak, is 47% popular. But the authoritarian democrats are the JID, the Japanese Imperial Delegation, which starts at 20% and could potentially become a leader. That is the Japanese lapdog one here. And you have all these other political parties. Most of them are not going to really come into play, except for, I think, the... wait, which one is it? Yeah, here we go. The PPM, Party of Popular Freedom. So let's now talk about the elephant in the room, for those of you who know it. How do I force the Russian Civil War to happen? Because we have this focus tree here. Turmoil in Siberia, always false, takes 14 days, but it'll just automatically be bypassed. You cannot take this unless the Soviet Union is at war with Russia. There is no Soviet Union right now. There is no Soviet Russia. So basically, if the Russian Civil War does not start, you do not have a game, which is why Transamur games often require several resets or the player cheating. I'm going to be showing you how to cheat. I know, you could just restart over and over again, though. It is totally up to you. So I'm going to be going to a lot of save files over the course of this guide. Keep in mind, this is obviously not something I would do during a regular playthrough. It's just something that I do to demonstrate. Same reason why I do focus autocompletes during guides sometimes. So you want to start as Russia if you want to have a proper Transamur campaign. This is just the first thing that you have to do. And take whatever you want, just do everything that you can to ruin the stability of Russia until you get this revolution pop-up. You'll then have 3 choices of things to do. We are going to say, this is Russia, one and indivisible, we shall smash the Soviets. So I'm going to do that, and Soviet Russia is going to pop up. It's going to take Petrograd. I think they used to not start with Petrograd, but Petrograd would fall immediately, so why not? So the Soviet Russia is going to have Petrograd. They're going to have Moskva under Bukharin. And they're going to be fighting whatever government is in charge in Russia. In this case, it's Dmitry, it could be Wrangel, it could be others. Now, if we tag over to Transamur now, which should be in the middle of a focus at the moment, you're going to see the Turmoil in Siberia focus autocomplete any moment now. Alright. This is actually something else that's interesting. You're getting the more exiles arrive in Transamur. This is something else. There we go. Turmoil in Siberia bypassed. This is something else that is going to happen frequently. Once the Russian Civil War happens, it's kind of like how New England and now Argentina will get refugees from the American Civil War. You're going to get this effect where 3,000 manpower, and sometimes more, I think there's also a 5,000 manpower event, will be arriving in Transamur, increasing your manpower pool, which as you can see is 0 here in April of 1936. And this is also going to lower the popularity of authoritarian Democrats by 1%. Remember, they are representing the Japanese, so as more Russian bodies are entering the society, the Japanese rule is getting less popular, and also you're going to be getting more infantry equipment put inside of your stockpiles. So you're just going to get those regularly as long as the war continues between the Soviets and the Russians. The Russians pretty much always win. So now that we've done that, as you can see, you can now take the Russia is vulnerable focus, which means your game can actually start for real. Now this is arguably the most important of the pop-ups in the early game, because while you could argue it's impossible for you to win if you don't get some of the other positive events in regards to taking Russian territory, if you don't get this first one, you're not going to win. So this is where we've taken the Russia is vulnerable focus. You're going to get this event, Panic in Siberia. Since Russia's in the middle of a civil war, you can try to take these Siberian territories. Now Russia's not going to miss them. I don't think I've ever seen Russia, at least as far as the AI is concerned, say no to this. But you're going to ask the Japanese Empire for permission to take Siberia because you are their puppet. Japan is usually going to say yes, although watch the game make me a liar. Pop-up should happen any day now. Yep, they have accepted our Siberian claims. Now, the Empire of Japan has said yes, you can go ahead and invade Siberia. Transamur is now going to attempt to invade Siberia. The Russian Republic is now going to get a pop-up regarding if that is allowed or not. Carles is doing well in Argentina, I see. It's going to take a few days. Russia has refused to intervene, so the so-called Russian government have seemingly accepted the fait accompli in Siberia and have taken no serious military action against our liberation effort. A smart choice. So now you're going to get all this section of Transamur, which is significant. Take a look at your resources right now. You're making 25 chromium, importing 16 steel, and you still have a deficit. You don't have much. But then you just wait until you get all those resources, because now you have access to the steel here. There's some more exiles arriving. And the steel situation completely changes. And you don't have to trade anymore. So this is huge. Once you've done that, you can continue to go down your tree. The next one is going to be pushing our claims in the Baikal region. This is going to, it's just rinse and repeat. It's kind of like when you're playing as the Mongols. You're just going to try to push further claims here. Try to go a little bit further west. So, another panic in Siberia. First off, let's talk about the Japan demanding bases. They now want some areas of Siberia, because they're happy that you took it, but now they want a little piece of it. If you say yes that we still need Japanese protection, they're going to become the owners of this area, which of course looks very ugly. If you're Kolchak anyway. Now meanwhile, the panic in Siberia. You're going to get 3 options. You can say this is a bit risky and back off. You can ask the Japanese for permission again, or you could just claim it. Claim Lake Baikal, which is going to lower your stability, and Russia is going to get an event. Now, usually the AI is going to say hell no, because this is usually when the Russians stand up for themselves. But sometimes, if you're really lucky, you'll get it. Which in this case we weren't, and so now you find yourself automatically at war with Russia. So, let's look at some other things that can happen first. When the Japanese demand their bases, which you just saw them take in Siberia, you could choose to say no. In which case, Japan is then going to get an event. So, in this case, the Japanese have congratulated us on our seizure of Siberia, etc., etc. We are going to say it is time to throw off the Japanese yoke, and then Japan will get a choice on whether or not they want to declare war on you. Now, you could go to war with them. It's going to be tricky, because Feng Tian is usually going to come in on their side. In fact, just count on it. It's going to happen. But you could, you know, somehow defeat them, and if you did, you'd be awfully powerful. Look at the factory count, 18 to 48. You know, this is in 1936, of course, but there are ways to pull it off. It's hard, but it can be done. All right, let's go back to another save file. So let's say you were successfully able to continue to push west, and you got west of Lake Baikal, which we're going to see in a moment here. You can then open up other areas of your focus tree for further expansions. So in this case, we were able to, well, let's first take a look. We were able to push further west. As you can see, we have our new capital here to the west of the lake. I then took the integration, so we now have the cores, and this now renames Transamur to the Russian Far Eastern Republic. Another thing that you can do is you can take the Crush the Mongols focus, which is going to give you several options. This is not the only event pop up like this. You can immediately declare war on Mongolia and try to take everything, and of course get the cores for the Trans-Siberian Railroad. You can wait a month, you can wait 6 months, or you can wait a year. So let's say you say, I want to wait 1 more month. Then in 1 month, you're going to get that pop up again, and it is again going to ask you, do you want to go to war with Mongolia now, in 1 month, in 6 months, in 1 year? So don't feel pressured. If you just want to get these focuses done so then you can move on, although it's kind of hard to move on, you could take it, just get it out of the way, and then declare the war on your own time. It's usually helpful to still be a part of Japan and their co-prosperity sphere when you're going to war with Russia, because then they're going to help you. Although eventually, no matter what, you are going to break off from Japan one way or the other. So once you have crushed the Mongols, you can then choose to integrate their lands. Let's move a little bit further here in the timeline. But you can integrate Mongolia into your lands, or at least part of it or all of it. Keep in mind that when you do such a thing, you're going to be taking hits to stability and political power and such. So, for example, in this save file, we are at war with Mongolia. But you just annex it, and there you go. Oh, wait, I also have to annex Tibet, whose country tag I am forgetting. Tibet is TIB, I want to say. So yeah, you can take care of that. Now, eventually you're going to get this other focus that you could do. Go west, which is going to give you tons of claims on not all of Russia, but essentially all of Russia up to the Ural Mountains here. And just like when you were going to attack Mongolia, you're going to be able to attack them right away. You can wait a month, wait a half year, or wait a year. In this case, we'll just go to war right away. Now here's where things get tricky. This is now blocked off. You have these integrations of West Siberia, which only can happen when you control certain areas of Russia. So you need to get Yekaterinburg and, wait, no, where's the other one? Right here. Chelyabinsk. And when you do that, you can get your cores, and the cores are very important for keeping your manpower up because you're grabbing all those Russian cores. You can then move the capital, and eventually you are going to abandon the Japanese sphere. Now, this doesn't happen until you're at peace. So now we're going to take a huge leap forward. Also note that it's 1937 and the Soviets have already been defeated. It's going to usually end pretty quick. But anyway, we are going to take a great big leap forward and take a look at what the world looks like when Kolchak seizes all of Russia. Now, this is important because it has actually changed. It used to be that if Kolchak managed to defeat the nominal Russian government, if you were to ask him, but he was able to defeat the regular Russian government that is called that at the start of the game. The focus tree would then change, and you would get the Russian tree, and it would be as advanced as it was at the time. So this is kind of like that old issue where if the Pacific States of America won the American Civil War, they would turn into the United States, but then Douglas MacArthur would be in charge. The only difference would be that you'd have Kolchak over here as Russia. Now, at least in this current patch, as far as my testing is shown, you will not become Russia again. Let's annex Tibet again so we're no longer at war. So once you've done that, you can then begin to do some integrations. Well, yeah, we're going to do focus auto completing, you know, moving the capital. So capital's here. Why wouldn't he put it at Omsk again, I wonder? You can eventually get the final solution, which gets you renamed the Russian Republic. And you get this cool color. It's a very unique color. Certainly a mark of pride if you ever get in this color naturally without using assistance. Take a screenshot and feel that you've earned that, dude. You'll get the final solution. We have not abandoned the Japanese sphere, so if you were at this point, you would definitely be going to war with Japan, almost certainly. So let's just go ahead and say that. Whoops, I accidentally tagged that. I did not mean to do that. All right, I meant to annex Japan because if you're gonna attack Japan, you may as well annex it, right? So this is your glorious Russian Republic at this moment. You're then going to be able to get claims. So you can reclaim Central Asia, so that's going to give you claims on Turkestan, for example. You can reclaim the Caucasus, which of course is going to give you claims on everything in the Caucasus. And then you could reclaim Eastern Europe, which is going to give you claims on this whole sphere of influence of the Germans. So Ukraine, Lithuania, the United Baltic Duchies, and Belarusia. So, if you were to do that, I keep forgetting if I have it enabled or disabled. Everything that says Russian Republic and this red could be yours as Admiral Kolchak. Of course, that would probably be much, much later in the game, probably the 1940s. But keep in mind, you've been picking up the cores as you marched your way west. So, available manpower, you've got almost 4.5 million here because you're going to be on extensive conscription. You do have access to plenty of ministers as well. I didn't go and companies and stuff. I didn't go through all that. That's not super important. But that is basically the story of Kolchak's redemption. There is one other thing, though, we were going to go over. The anti-Kolchak coup. This is something that's going to happen in mid-1937. You do basically control your own fate, although this could also lead into a war against the Japanese. When the anti-Kolchak coup happens, there's three options. You can have Kolchak be overthrown. You can have Kolchak's guards defeat the rebels, which is going to lower your stability. Or you can do the Japanese garrison intervenes, so you get to keep your stability, but you're going to lose 10% popularity. I mean, you're going to gain 10% popularity in the authoritarian Democrats. Remember, that's the Japanese imperial delegation, because the Japanese are the ones who seem to be propping you up, so maybe they're the ones who really need to be in charge. But let's say he gets overthrown. You've got a couple of options here. You could go with Sergei, I'm so sorry for the pronunciation, Sergei Wojciechowski, who was another leader in the white movement during the Russian Civil War and was a participant in the Great Siberian Ice March. Who'd have thought there would be so much ice there? And if you get him, let's move forward a little bit. You're going to get the bypass anti-Kolchak coup, and this is going to open up the military cabinet branch here. Alternatively, you could have the coup succeed. Let's go back here again. And somebody else could be in charge. Now, I'm pretty sure this guy, this was an interesting one, actually. It's this guy called Nikolai Smirnov, if you have the Republic be founded. So I'm pretty sure this is Nikolai Smirnov, who was actually a Soviet admiral. So that's why I'm just a little bit confused, because I guess you could argue he wasn't a Soviet yet, because he was born in 1917, so he doesn't join the Navy until the 1930s. But why would he be in the East? Because he was born in the West. I don't know. But that's what's going to happen. Now, if Japan is still alive, they might go to war with you over this, and they could also influence the decision. They could potentially put the Japanese lapdog in charge. But if you got Smirnov here, give it a couple of days, give it a day or two, there you go. This is going to open up your democracy prevails. And, you got research time, production caps, less, consumer goods. And it all, of course, leads to the research slot. But there you have it. Those are the various way. That is the way. It's a long journey. It's going to take you years, and you need tons and tons of luck to do it. But you can go from Transamur to the Russian Far East Republic to the Russian Republic, and you get this kind of interesting, I guess, spearmint green Russian Republic in charge, and you no longer tag over to just being Russia. Wait, can you liberate Siberia now? Wait a second. I'm finding this out right in front of you guys. Okay, no. They're working on that. So, anyway, thanks for joining me. I'm Conquering History Games. I know this was a little bit of a long guide. Certainly not the longest guide I've ever done. Go check out my Australasian Confederation guide if you want to see a seriously long guide. Thank you to all my subscribers. In fact, by the time this goes up, I should have 13,000 of you, and I appreciate all of you very, very much. And if you want to see me do more of these guides, please let me know in the comments. And if you want to support me in a more direct way so that I can make more guides faster, there's a link in the description to my Patreon page. Patreons usually get to vote on the subject of my Kaiserreich guides as well as other things. So if you're interested in that, go check it out. And thanks for your time. I hope you have a wonderful day. I'm Conquering History Games, and bye.